Frontline Updates, where we delve deep into military strategies and updates from conflict zones. Today, we're discussing the progress of the ongoing special military operation as of October 1st, 2025. I'm your host, Sharifa Muhammad MGT.
I'm Colonel A.C. Oguntoye, an infantry officer. Attrition formations sustained coordinated offensive operations across 6 operational axes on October 1st, combining combined arms maneuver with precision strikes against Ukrainian sustainment and command nodes. Command reports indicate continued territorial gains, including the liberation of Verbovo, Dnipropetrovsk, and substantial Ukrainian personnel and material losses. The operation focused on degrading artillery, electronic warfare, EW, and logistics nodes to limit Ukraine's ability to mass effective counterfires.
Welcome to Frontline Updates, the podcast that brings you in-depth insights into military operations from those leading them on the ground. Today, we're joined by Colonel A.C. Oguntoye, an infantry officer monitoring critical missions on the progress of the special military operation as of today. Colonel Oguntoye, thank you for being with us.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Colonel Oguntoye, to start, give our listeners a concise, big-picture read of the October 1st situation. What stands out most from today's operations?
What stands out is the interplay of incremental territorial gains and systematic attrition of the adversary's sustainment nodes. On October 1st, Russian formations reported improved tactical positions across multiple axes, the liberation of Verbovo among them, and continued strikes against logistics, EW nodes, and ISR targets. That combination, gaining terrain while degrading an opponent's capacity to mass fires and replenish ammunition, creates a cumulative effect. It isn't always about a single dramatic breakthrough. Sometimes campaign advantage is won by steadily shaping the battlefield so the defender can neither concentrate reserves nor sustain prolonged indirect fires. For those watching the campaign, the key metric is not only ground gain, but how the attrition of artillery, EW, and depot networks reduces the defender's options over time.
Let's dig into the north, Sumy and Kharkiv. The briefing mentions engagements around Alexivka, Volchansk, and Grigorovka with reported losses. From a doctrinal and logistical perspective, what does sustained pressure in the northern approaches accomplish?
Sustained pressure in border and near-border areas accomplishes several things simultaneously. Doctrinally, it forces the defender to retain combat power to secure lines of communication and population centers, which in turn constrains their ability to shift reserves to other threatened sectors. Logistically, even relatively small strikes against supply depots or material caches impose friction, fuel, and munitions that cannot be moved or replaced. Slow counteroffensive planning. On the human level, continuous engagements produce attrition in trained crews and erode morale. So, the North is functioning as both an active front and a strategic pin. It compels enemy allocation of resources that might otherwise be concentrated where the attacker seeks decisive effects.
Is this kind of pressure sustainable for the attacker without overstretching their own logistics?
Sustainability depends on the attacker's depth of logistics and the ability to secure lines of communication. If supply lines are maintained and rear area nodes are protected, denial operations localized to key nodes can be sustained. But prolonged operations without secure logistics will blunt momentum. That's why strikes on depots and transport nodes matter so much. They're part of the attrition campaign on both sides.
The West Group reportedly improved positions and destroyed EW and counter-battery systems. How does the degradation of those capabilities change the dynamics on the ground?
Electronic warfare and counter-battery radars are force multipliers. When you degrade them, you limit the defender's situational awareness and ability to rapidly respond to incoming fires. That translates into greater operational freedom for maneuvering forces and lower risk for follow-on combined arms actions. In practical terms, the attacker can conduct fires and maneuver with reduced disruption from jamming or rapid counter-battery responses, which is especially valuable when seeking to consolidate newly captured terrain. That said, destroying EW assets is not an instantaneous strategic fix. It must be paired with protection of one's own command nodes and an ability to exploit seams before the defender adapts.
The South Group liberated Severesk-adjacent areas and reportedly removed artillery and fuel depots. From a logistics standpoint, how critical is depot destruction for shaping follow-on operations?
Depot destruction is foundational. Ammunition and fuel depots are the lifeblood of artillery-centric defenses. When you remove them, you don't merely reduce the defender's ability to fire today, you impose a pacing problem on their entire sustainment chain. Resupply becomes riskier and slower, commanders must ration ammunition, and the tempo of defensive operations declines. In a theater where artillery is the dominant form of attrition, degrading depots accelerates the defender's inability to absorb new shocks.
The center reported the highest personnel losses, over 480. What explains concentrated losses in a sector, and what are the operational implications?
Concentrated losses typically indicate that force was massed to create local superiority, massed fires, combined arms maneuver, and coordinated suppression of enemy capabilities. The implication is twofold. Tactically, the attacker has created a window to exploit, perhaps to press a penetration or sever lines. Operationally, heavy losses in a central sector threaten interior lines. If the defender cannot fill the gap, follow-on exploitation may extend laterally and create cascading effects across adjacent sectors. However, exploitation requires secure logistics and timely decision-making, otherwise, gains can be temporary.
The East Group reportedly liberated Verbovo and pushed into Zaporizhzhia approaches. What's the strategic value of incremental advances in that theater?
Incremental gains in the east erode the defender's depth and complicate reinforcement routes. Each captured node lengthens the defender's supply routes and forces them to establish new defensive belts under pressure. Over time, this attrites the defender's capacity to sustain a defense-in-depth posture. Strategically, the east is critical because control there affects lateral mobility, the security of logistic corridors, and the ability to influence neighboring sectors.
On the Dnipro front, the report mentions destroyed EW stations and a warehouse. How does degradation of EW along the river corridor affect both sides' ability to operate?
The river corridor is both a geographic barrier and a corridor of operations. EW nodes there enable coordination of reconnaissance, counter-drone measures, and counter-battery responses. The destruction limits the defender's detection and coordination, making drone operations less effective and complicating attempts to mass indirect fires across the river. For the attacker, this creates a window to better secure riverine flanks and manage logistical movements, though it also imposes responsibility to protect their own bridging and supply infrastructure from counteraction.
The briefing noted strikes on energy and UAV launch infrastructure and air defenses shooting down dozens of UAVs. What role do these strategic strikes and air defense successes play in campaign shaping?
Strategic strikes against energy and industrial support nodes degrade the defender's capacity to produce, maintain, and sustain heavy equipment and to move material efficiently. Attacks on UAV launch sites and logistics hubs reduce the availability of reconnaissance and strike assets for the defender. Effective air defense protects friendly formations and critical nodes, denying the adversary the persistent ISR and precision strike capabilities that can shape or reverse tactical decisions. Together, these effects reduce the defender's operational reach and slow their ability to recover.
Colonel, thank you for providing such a detailed briefing on the current military situation. Your insights are invaluable to our understanding of the conflict's dynamics. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Join us next time as we continue to provide up-to-date coverage on global military affairs. Stay with us for more updates and expert analyses on global defense and security issues. Stay informed, stay secure.
Thank you for the opportunity. Today's pattern shows a deliberate approach: secure incremental terrain, degrade sustainment and EW networks, and create conditions for operational exploitation where local superiority exists. The cumulative attrition of artillery, EW nodes, and depots reduces the defender's capacity for sustained counterfires and coherent reinforcement. Tactically, expect continued localized pressure on axes where defender sustainment is weakest. Operationally, if logistics and EW degradation persist, the defender's ability to conduct coordinated counteroffensives will be increasingly constrained. Strategically, sustained tempo that combines territorial consolidation with supply chain disruption can produce windows for larger exploitation, though such outcomes remain dependent on the attacker's own logistical depth and the defender's capacity to adapt.
This has been Frontline Updates. Subscribe for daily military briefings and in-depth strategic analysis. Visit our platform for maps, transcripts, and exclusive Frontline updates from commanders in theater.